All right. So again, we are here for the informational session for the Youth Program Quality Initiative for the 2025 to 26 school year. So we just did our warm welcome. We're going to go over the goals of the initiative, take a look at the process, and then go over some logistical things, and we'll have some time for questions. And again, feel free to interrupt, ask questions in the chat or out loud, however you need to. So goals for the initiative, there are several, but a few of them, maybe stated in the name, is to increase program quality of after-school programs in Alaska, and we'll talk more about that on the next slide. But we really want to create a common language for talking about programming and program quality, develop a culture of continuous improvement among programs. We really want to foster a professional learning community to help our field feel connected within our field. And it's also a really great opportunity for both you at your programs to learn about your programs and supports you may need, but also for us at the state level to know what needs are on the state so we know where to put our resources as well to support you. So why do we do this work? Research shows that when there are certain assets or elements happening in out-of-school time programming, it leads to positive youth development, builds protective factors that can protect against effects of adverse childhood experiences, and overall leads to better youth outcomes. So first and foremost, our programs are a safe place for youth to be, which is amazing. And when we can add those kind of quality experiences and best practices, that really helps elevate and scaffold youth to positive youth experiences in your programs. So this is a quick snapshot of what the whole process looks like. It is kind of a three-phase assess, plan, improve phase or cycle. So the first phase is the assess phase. So in fall, you get trained in how to use the program quality assessment tool of whichever tool your program is using. And then you use the tool to assess your program. And we'll dive more into all three of these phases in just a minute here. So you do an assessment in fall, and then in winter, you come to planning with data, which is a workshop where we sit down with the data from your assessment and we go through some root cause analysis and you set some goals for your program to implement in spring. And then in spring, January, February, March, that is the improve phase where you're carrying out your goals that you set up planning with data. We offer training supports and coaching supports. And then ideally in spring, we loop back around to the assess phase and you do a spring assessment to measure that change and growth throughout the year. So I'm going to go a little bit more into each of these phases. So for the assess phase, in fall, we offer trainings for how to use these tools, whether you choose to do an external assessment where someone else comes and does the assessment for you, or if you're doing the assessment yourself. But there are two tools that we use. We use the school age program quality assessment tool and the youth program quality assessment tool, which are very, very similar tools. There's just a few scales and items that differ just to adjust for the age level, but most of the items are almost identical. And so this tool is measuring what's happening at the program level between staff and youth. So it's looking at interactions between staff and youth mostly. I also added on here the social emotional learning program quality assessment tool. That is an entirely separate tool that has a lot of similar things as the youth and school age tool. We haven't offered it fully as the tool itself because it really is kind of a scaffolded, I don't know, like higher level of quality in some ways. And so we really want programs to establish themselves in the youth and school age tool before dipping their toes into the SEL tool. So this year for programs that are returning for their third or higher year, we're going to start offering a few scales to add on from the SEL tool as an optional add-on, partially to, keep scaffolding that level of quality and also, so that the same tool doesn't get stale year after year. Any questions so far on the tools? Okay. So I mentioned with these tools, you can either do a self-assessment or an external assessment. Self-assessment is where you have attended program quality basics training in fall that we offer, and you learn how to do the assessment yourself. And so then you, in usually October is assessment season. Sometime in October, you will assess your program. So you'll observe your program, fill out the assessment tool, put your scores into our scores reporter data management system, and then that will give you the data that will be used in the planning phase. For an external assessment, there are a couple ways this can look. A lot of people have someone from the Alaska After School Network come out and do your assessment for you. So we'll come out, observe your program, go back to our hotel and score the tool, and then we'll meet with you the next day and share your scores, walk through the entire tool and everything we observed, and then we take care of putting those scores into Scores Reporter for you. There is also sometimes an opportunity. Some programs have external assessors. So an external assessor is someone who has gone through the external assessment reliability training through the Weichert Center. And so some of you have an external assessor on your staff. So they'll have just your external assessor that you have on staff do the external assessment for you. So same process, but just someone from your own organization instead of the network. Some programs will choose to do the self-assessment in fall and spring. Some programs will do one of each. They'll do a self in fall, external in spring, or vice versa. Some people will request external in both fall and spring. A lot of times that kind of depends on our availability at this network. But both options are great options. We actually said that the self-assessment is kind of the gold star standard because you are really digging into those items and analyzing your practices for yourself. That said, external assessment can sometimes give a more objective eye, so both have incredible value. So I'll mention this third tool, or I guess technically fourth tool. So there's also this organizational quality assessment, which is an optional piece. It's kind of this side piece that some programs do, some programs don't. And this is more for the management level. And it is looking at what's happening between the organization and staff to support what staff are doing with youth. So the PQA tools we looked at before are what's happening between staff and youth. This one's looking at what's happening between the organization and staff. So how is the organization supporting the staff to support youth? And so this is done through an interview. We usually sit down with management and walk through all of the items in the tool and kind of talk through what kind of the evidence for some of the scoring in that tool is. And this is one we don't necessarily recommend doing every year, every 2 to 3 years, unless there's been major turnover or changes within your organization. So again, this one's kind of an add-on side piece. And so this is our timeline for the assess phase. I know these timeline slides always feel like a lot to look at, but I just kind of want to walk you through what the timeline looks like. So in August, we'll have a kickoff meeting where we'll go through basically a lot of the same stuff I'm going through today, but just making sure everybody's on the same page and ready to go. And then in early September, these days aren't officialized yet, but these are the days we're planning for. We are going to have the Weichert Center, who created the program quality assessment tool and process. They come in and do a 6-hour basics training. So it's 3 hours across 2 days, and they do a deep dive in the tool and how the assessment and observation process works and scoring process. So that's great for people who are new to this process or who haven't done a full basics in a few years. If you have done that full 6-hour basics and don't want to sit through the same 6-hour training again, I also offer a 1-hour version of that I'll do the following week. It's really just like a recap of this 6-hour basics. So once you're trained and refreshed on how to do the assessment, late September or October is the ideal time to conduct your fall assessment. Again, either self or external assessment. And then if your organization chooses to do the organizational quality assessment, we'll offer a quick training just going over the tool, what kinds of things it's looking at, prepare whoever's going to do it or what materials they might want to look through beforehand. And then sometime in October, we'll have programs sign up for that interview time. And that usually takes about 1 to 2 hours. We'll sit down and just walk through the tool together and score it together. And then by the end of October is our due date for getting assessment data into our online data management system so that we have time to compile and prepare everything for our planning with data sessions. I see a question in the chat. Is the assessment that we just had Anna do for us considered our spring external? Yes, Amanda. That was Anna coming out to do an external assessment for you. Other questions on the assess phase before we dive into the plan phase? Okay. So in the plan phase, you're taking the data from your fall assessment, and Scores Reporter spits out a really beautiful data report that lets you look at tiered level data from your assessment, and it lets you put your data next to different combinations of, if you have just your site next to your organization, if your organization has multiple sites, and then we have our compiled state data and a national sample we can also put it next to. And so just for the example, what we're looking at is the most zoomed out version of the data. So there's 4 different domains that all of the items in the PQA tools fall into. So say we're in planning with data and we notice, okay, this program scored pretty well compared to the organization in supportive environment, but still lower than the state average. So maybe we want to zoom in and look at what's going on here in supportive environment. So in planning with data, it allows us to zoom in to supportive environment and look at, okay, now what are some areas that might be scoring low? Active engagement and staff support for youth skill building. You can see those are the lower scoring ones in this domain. Well, then we can now zoom in even further and be like, okay, what are the actual things that we need to do
Hey,
in program?
Erin, are you supposed to be sharing your screen?
Have I not been sharing my screen this entire time?
I just
I can
realized
see it.
I
Wait,
cannot. Is it
wait,
because I'm a host?
I can see it.
I can see it.
Okay. If I remove your co-host, does that allow you to see it? Let me try. I'm going to stop the share and reshare.
Sometimes when I'm on my laptop, I have to click on the actual Zoom icon if I accidentally exited out of the full screen on Zoom.
Did that help, Amanda?
Yes.
Okay, sometimes when you share screen, it will like supersede whatever's happening on your screen. Okay, thanks for letting me know. And I'm glad other people could see it and that I was actually sharing this whole time. I panicked for a second.
I was
Great. Oh, you're muted now.
yeah, you're talking about it. I'm like, what? I'm not seeing anything. I'm like, oh, it's because I'm a co-host. But I've seen it before too, so
Yeah, you know what these look like. Okay, great. Okay, so again, we are now zoomed into our item level data so we can go in and see, okay, what are the things that are scoring low that we maybe want to do a root cause analysis on and dive deeper and maybe set some goals around. So you can see for this specific one that they scored low in tangible products or performances. Staff encourages youth to try skills, staff modeling skills. So there's a few areas that maybe this program will talk about at Planning with Data to possibly look into setting some goals around. And so for planning with data, there are a few different options. There is a 6-hour one version that we offer that we recommend for new programs. And so we usually offer it at pre-conference, which is always in November in person. We'll also offer it online. Let's see, yeah, we put it for December this year. So that 6-hour version. And then we also offer a 2-hour version for returning programs. So returning programs don't have to go through the same 6-hour workshop every year. So we have a version that kind of goes straight into the goal setting, reviews some of the prerequisite pieces, and goes straight into the goal setting. But we have a few different options for that. And so when you're walking away from planning with data with goals set, and ideally you're leaving scores or leaving planning with data with your goals in our data management system scores reporter. But some programs, if your whole team couldn't make it, or if you want to go back and refine your goals afterwards, goals are just due before you leave for winter break. So that'll be mid to late December. And ideally for planning with data too, and really this whole process, we don't want this process to just be management telling staff what to do the whole time. We really want to try to engage staff. So if you're able to bring staff to planning with data, that's a great time to get staff to engage and get buy-in in the process and kind of value the quality practices as well. Any questions on the plan phase? All right. That brings us to the improve phase. So the improve phase is January, February, March. Usually we offer right when we get back from winter break in January, a professional learning community where we come together, people kind of review their goals, go through what supports they'll need, and just kind of get everyone back on the right foot after winter break. And then we offer these trainings that align with the program quality assessment tools. So say you set a goal around asking more open-ended questions. You could have your team attend the Ask, Listen, Encourage training or whichever training aligns with your goals. Some programs will only attend one or two trainings that align with their goals. Some programs who haven't attended these before will attend all of them. We also open these up to the general public as well. These will all be online. And we can also offer them two programs specifically if, say, you have a group of 5, 10 people that you want trained, we're happy to do one-offs for you as well. And then we also offer coaching support. So you can sign up for a coaching time to sit down and talk about how's your goal going? What kind of supports do you need? What's going well? That type of thing. So again, we come back and do our professional learning community. We offer those goal coaching check-ins. And then early March, I offer that 1-hour version of the basics training again. Just kind of refresh people before doing their spring assessment. Or if you say you have new staff starting who didn't get a chance to take it in fall, that's also an opportunity for them. And then those trainings that were listed on the last slide we offer, usually one a week. And if you are a program who is planning to do the SEL components that I mentioned, the couple add-on skills, we'll also have trainings that align with those skills as well. And then ideally in spring, you're conducting another assessment to measure that change in growth throughout the year. And then we always end the year with a celebration and reflection meeting, looking back at some of the data throughout the year, reflecting on wins and reflecting on the whole process. Because we are also about, this whole thing's about program quality improvement. We also want to improve our program quality. So this is your chance to help us improve this process too. And then spring assessment scores are due into Scores Reporter by the end of the school year. Any questions on the process, assess, plan, improve, before I dive into some more logistical application eligibility cost things? All right. Oh yeah, I also, going through that whole process can be a lot to take in. There's a lot of little pieces, so I just wanted to put up this kind of shorter list of what the actual things are. So September, get trained. October, you do your assessment. November, December, planning with data. January, professional learning community. All spring, you're implementing your goals, training, coaching. And then April is another assessment and celebration. So it just feels like a little less to look at on this slide. So eligibility, We put on here a program that meets 3 to 5 times per week for an average of 2 to 3 hours per day. This can be squishy. The idea here is that we want programs that are meeting with the same kids pretty regularly so that there's that dosage piece to actually be able to see the impact on, and that you're meeting throughout the school year while this process is going on. We put programs that serve at least 10 youth. I know Alaska, there are some pretty tiny programs in rural. So if it's not quite 10, we've definitely had smaller. We've also had much, much bigger, but we say around 10 or more. And then we also say at least 2 program staff who are responsible for implementation, just so that, again, we don't want this to just be a manager attending all of the things and telling staff what to do. We really want at least if some of the staff involved and have buy-in into your goals in getting the training. Costs are, there's a lot of stuff on this slide. So cost is $75 per program site, and that is to cover the cost of the data management system scores reporter. There are a couple other fees that may pop up. That this is new this year because we've always just covered these extra fees in the past, but we're going to ask programs to start covering these fees if they apply to you. So some programs will request an additional user account. So if you're a program that has 5 different sites and you want one manager to be able to access all 5 of those sites from one account, that's going to be $15 per user account. Otherwise, they can always just log in using those individual sites logins. But say you wanted a centralized account to access them all, that's $15. Same with the external assessor. If you have an external assessor at your site who wants to have access to sites to put in external assessments, that's also $15. And then the next one probably won't apply, but we put it on there just in case it does. The data management system comes with an option of up to 2 different tools. Most people just use one tool, either the school age or the youth tool. But if you're also doing the organizational quality assessment, and if someone does the SEL add-on, there could potentially be up to 3, or if you're using both the school and youth tool, 3 to 4 tools. That typically this hasn't been a problem, but we just wanted to put it out there for transparency that if you do end up asking for more than 2 tools in your scores reporter, that's going to be $15. Another potential cost that could come up if you do have us come out to do an external assessment for you. We typically ask programs to cover just the cost of our travel per diem, mileage, things like that, whatever type of travel costs may be involved. Unless you are a Positive Youth Development After School Program PIDAP grantee, we're the PIDAP contractor with the state, so our travel for those are covered. One thing that's new this year, we haven't quite nailed down all of the details yet, but we are going to be starting to ask 21st century programs to cover staff time for external assessments. So more to come on that. But the only upfront cost is really the cost associated with Scores Reporter, which once you apply to the YPQI, we will send out a memorandum of agreement. And then after the MOA is signed, we'll send an invoice to invoice for the Scores Reporter costs. So if any of the travel or assessment costs come up, we will go through all that in a separate agreement whenever it comes up later. Any questions on cost? There's a lot on this slide. Okay. So the application, I'll put the link in the chat, is just on our website. You have to scroll down a little bit. There'll be a link to the call for applications, which is a PDF that basically just explains everything I just went through in this slideshow. And then there's also a button with the application, which is going to be a Survey Monkey, and it asks for all the information that we're going to need. So it's not super, it depends how many programs you have. The more programs you have, the longer the application is. I will say though, for some of you like Trudy, this is a Marcy and Darcy thing, Boys and Girls Club. This will be blanking on name. Hillary's gone. This will probably be a Crystal thing. Yeah, so the application is due May 1st. We've got a few weeks to do this. And also happy to answer any questions. If you're filling out the application, not sure what something means or anything like that, please feel free to reach out and ask. I feel like I talked really fast. What questions do you have?
Hi, Erin. It's Kimberly.
Hey,
Hi, how are you?
good.
Nice to see your face again. Um, um, I was wondering, so I am with the Children's Exploration Center with Kay at the Alaska State Library's Archives and Museums, and we don't necessarily have the reporting that we would have to do to any grants. But this could be just a tool that we could use to better our programming, right? Like it's something that we could just, if we decided to purchase it and just use it for our own kind of knowledge in the space. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
okay?
yeah. So we have a definitely have a variety of types of users who are using this. So there are some programs like PIDAP grantees and 21st Century programs that were required to be doing some form of program quality improvement for their grants. And so a lot of them will come through us because we're the cheap, easy option that holds your hand throughout the whole process. But we also have some organizations that just optionally choose to do this just to better themselves. And we even do have some who, I'm not sure if this will be weird programs like that, doesn't necessarily see the same kids every time, but it's more of like a field trip option. They still use it to better their programming as well. So yeah, we
Right.
definitely
Yeah,
welcome all walks.
we wouldn't have continuous, I mean, we might get repeat visitors, but it's more of a space that will be open for locals and tourists, but then also for class visits through the district. So yeah, it's more of, yeah.
Yeah.
I could see it being more of a tool for us kind of bettering the program and making sure that we're kind of, hitting supportive environment, safe environment, those things. So.
Yeah, we definitely have programs using it in very similar context as you. And there might be a few items that look a little bit different for you just because of the kind of supervision dynamics between who's visiting and things like that. But yeah, we definitely have programs using it for similar purposes as you. Let's see. Gina, you think you applied? Okay, I can go in and check too. Okay, that is all I have for you. I'll stay on for a few more minutes if people have questions. I'm gonna end the recording.